Today, we shall see victory! A great new altered fights at our side! Together, we shall fuck them up!
Hey! Hi! How you doing? This is Ryan. Welcome back to the Gamertron Show. So, Outriders. Before I start talking about the nitty-gritty, my thoughts, feelings, and opinions, I just want to make you all aware that if you haven't watched it already, I've made a video concerning Outriders' extremely poor, unacceptable launch state with the constant server disconnects and crashes. This video, the one you're watching here right now, will not be going over the server issues and crashes. If you want to hear me talk about all that, go watch my last Outriders video. This Outriders video, I will be going over the actual content of the game and my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on it. And with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get started. So, Outriders, my most anticipated AAA video game of 2021. Developed by People Can Fly, the creators of Painkiller and Bulletstorm, both first-person shooters I'm quite fond of. Bulletstorm in particular. When I saw that People Can Fly were taking a shot at making their own looter shooter, my curiosity was immensely piqued. One, because I just love new IPs, new franchises entering the video game space, telling new stories with new characters and brand new universes. And two, I quite like looter shooters. I adore Borderlands. I'm quite fond of both the Division games, and despite its many issues and oddities in design, I still really enjoy playing Destiny 2. What can I say? I like collecting cool weapons and cool armor and then customizing my characters with them. Outriders' advertised features were also ticking a lot of boxes for me. No PvP multiplayer, flashy combat with an abundance of blood and gore, a real emphasis on the story campaign, and just fucking awesome, badass looking weapons, armor, and enemies. I won't lie, I was liking just about everything I was seeing about Outriders. And now I finally have the game, I've played it, I've put almost 100 hours into it, I've unlocked almost every achievement. So you know I'm not half-assing this, I'm not talking out of my ass. I've been thorough with Outriders and basically done everything you can do in the game. So what do I think about Outriders? How do I feel about Outriders? The long and short of it, I begrudgingly love this game. So far, one of my top 5 favorite games of the year. The game's got problems. There's a fair bit that could have been done a lot better, but god damn it, there's so much about this game that I like, that I love, and I cannot deny just how much fun I have playing this game. I mean, for God's sakes, I almost have 100 hours in this game, and I'm easily going to drop 100 hours more. So, why is that? Well, let me share with you my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Outriders. First up, graphics, visuals, and art style in general. Well, just like almost every AAA video game that's released the last several years, the game looks gorgeous. With impressively detailed textures in the character models and environments, pretty as hell special effects, and some impressive animations. But when it comes to the game's lighting, it can get a bit weird. Most of the time, it's great, it looks great. Really adds to the atmosphere of these environments. But in a few locations, the lighting just seems off and unnatural. The best way I can describe it is that there are times where it feels like the game's brightness and contrast is either set way too high or way too low. There were just times where I was like, okay, there's no reason for the game to be this dark and hard to see. And other times I was like, this is way too unnaturally bright. I just felt like some of the brightness and contrast levels in certain locations were just out of whack. But the majority of the time, the lighting is good, it does look good. When it comes to Outriders graphics, overall, the game is undeniably a good-looking game with high graphical quality. With the exception of the game's motion blur and post-processing effects. No other way to put it, those aspects of the game's graphics are just bad. They make the game look needlessly blurry and ugly. I highly recommend turning off the motion blur and setting the post-processing effects to low. Now, when it comes to the game's art style and designs, I just love the look of this game. I really love the highly detailed designs with exaggerated features and proportions. I don't know how else to describe it besides pseudo-cartoony realism. Like, you could totally see these character designs being at home in a graphic novel. What can I say? I really love how this game looks, especially when it comes to weapons and armor, but we'll get into that just a bit later. Up next, I want to talk about the game's story. I'm going to be brutally honest with all of you. All of the criticism I have seen online for Outriders' story, for its narrative, like, is just objectively false. The accusations of the game's writing and dialogue and characters being cringy or badly written or forgettable is simply not reality. A lot of people have simply written off this game's story and not even given it a fair chance, which I think is pretty fucking disgusting given the obvious immense amount of effort and passion and attention to detail put into making this story. I've replayed the campaign several times now, watched all of the cutscenes over and over again several times now, and I did not find anything that was cringy or badly written. Could you argue that there are some awkward moments and some pacing problems? Oh, certainly. Oh, and some abrupt tonal shifts as well. I'm not saying that Outriders' story, its narrative, its characters, its plot are all perfect. No, not by any means, but the majority of the criticisms levied at it are just simply not true. There's some genuinely great, well-written characters here. Your protagonist, the Outrider, your bro and best buddy Jakob, the ever-the-optimist Dr. Zahidi. Oh, and there's this really fucking good side character who provides you with a string of side quests called the Wanderer. The Wanderer is great. His whole mystery and backstory and character arc is just, it's fucking great. It's great stuff. While there are some main characters like Chana, Tiago, and Bailey I feel like should have had more character development, they do still have nonetheless, regardless, some pretty good character moments. All of this backed up by great voice acting. All of this backed up even further by an extensive codex, the likes of which we've only seen in other games like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and the recent Doom games, detailing all the characters, all the locations, all the history, backstory, lore of the world and universe of Outriders and the planet Enoch. This is a fully fleshed out world, a fully fleshed out universe. And if you still don't believe me, if you're one of those people that are convinced that Outriders has bad story, bad characters, bad dialogue, bad voice acting, just bad in the whole narrative story department, I'm about to prove you wrong. I'm going to show a few clips from the game that are absolutely story spoilers. If you plan on playing Outriders for yourself and don't want anything spoiled, skip to this time in the video. Alright, playing some spoilerific story and character cutscenes now.
What happened here? Whose graves are those?
Sarah, Elodie, Michelle. It wasn't their fault. I was picked as a community leader to distribute food. I admit I kept some for ourselves, for my girls. Was I supposed to watch them starve? I traded for favors. Seemed harmless enough. I only took food, but they took everything from me.
Oh. But you told me you had...
Nothing of value here for me but my memories. Take it all. Then go, please. I'll stay here a little longer.
You remember anything about Earth?
I remember a roadrunner and this coyote. I remember laughing so much. Couldn't stop. It's amazing to think they kept playing cartoons right to the end. I mean, my whole generation. We went to school, we played games online, we hung out with our friends, knowing we wouldn't grow up.
Well, you did.
Yeah. I grew up to see most people I know die. Grew up a refugee with bombs falling every night. And yet, I still feel guilty.
You okay? What's going on, Tiago?
It's daughter once. Small little critter about this tall. Having a baby in the trenches, it was stupid. We knew it. She was so frightened of it all, the gunfire and the storms. Monsters. But I tell her stories, pretend it was all just a game. But if we won, we'd win a prize. But she wanted to know what the prize was. I told her there was a place out there, far from all that mud and death. I promised I'd take her there. It was winter when she tried to stop the bleeding. I held her until... It's okay, Papa, she told me. You can still win the prize. I promised her there were no monsters. I promised the same to August. Yet I brought them both into a world full of monsters.
I'm sorry. Friend.
Thank you, Outrider.
Now, after watching all those cutscenes and listening to that voice acting and dialogue, do you really want to fucking tell me that Outriders has bad story, bad characters, bad writing, bad voice acting? You really want to say that to my face? There's no other way to put it. Outriders, in terms of everything involving narrative, is objectively quality. Is it perfect? No. Does it have issues that could be fixed and improved upon? Absolutely. Outriders as a whole is a flawed video game that has issues, but the story is not one of them. The story and characters are good, and I really like them. Especially when it comes to your playable character, the Outrider, who is an absolute badass and doesn't take shit from anybody, and your best buddy Jakob, who is just such a bro and a lovable arse. He'll bitch at you about everything, but he's always got your back. But now let's talk about the most important part and my favorite part of Outriders, the gameplay. I fucking love the combat gameplay of Outriders. It feels so good and it looks so good. It checks all my boxes. Extreme violence, being rewarded for aggression in close quarters combat, deep customization allowing you to tailor your playstyle. It's all here in spades. Admittedly, when I first played the game, I wasn't too fond of the game's movement system and base movement speed, but I eventually grew accustomed to and even fond of it, understanding and feeling how it fits with the game's fast-paced combat. Gunplay is solid and satisfying, and I expected nothing less from the developers of Bulletstorm and Painkiller. They're flashy, impactful, and can satisfyingly tear enemies apart, especially shotguns. The blood and gore system in this game is so good and makes killing enemies so satisfying. Watching them explode into showers of blood, seeing their body parts and even entire skeletons go flying into the air and littering the battlefield. However, admittedly, when it comes to the game's cover system, it's pretty poor. It's very clunky, unresponsive, and just not smooth or satisfying as other cover systems in other third-person shooters like The Division and Gears of War. I really feel like Outriders' cover system could use a lot more refinement and polish. I mean, the cover system technically works, but I never feel a need or a want to use cover like I do in other third-person shooters with a cover system. I'm only ever using cover in Outriders when all of my weapons require reloading, or I find myself in a tough spot where I really need to fall back and regen health, but besides those rare occasions, cover is really underwhelming and really underutilized and could have been done a lot better. But what was handled fucking perfectly in terms of gameplay are the different playable classes and their abilities. Devastator, Trickster, Pyromancer, and Technomancer. All of these classes are badass and fun to play, and all of their abilities kick ass, look awesome, and feel so good to use. Your class abilities in Outriders can make you feel like an absolute god, devastating foes, changing the tide of battle. And the customization available for each class is staggering, allowing for a variety of different playstyles, builds, combos, and strategies with each class, and the way all class abilities seamlessly synergize with one another, allowing for immensely fun and visually spectacular ability combos annihilating hordes of enemies, which is all also aided by Outriders' unique variations on health regeneration. You need to kill enemies to regain health in Outriders, encouraging aggressive, action-packed play similar to games like Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. Kill your enemy to stay alive. I love this design philosophy in action video games. Thanks to this health regen system, Outriders rewards you for tactical moment-to-moment decisions during combat to effectively devastate your enemies, herding enemies together into groups to hit them all together with an ability combo, nullifying or debuffing an enemy with an ability so you can close in for the kill with another ability, a powerful melee strike, or your trusty gun. Outriders' combat gameplay just looks so good and feels so good, and you're further allowed to customize your gameplay experience and the game's overall difficulty with the dynamic world tier system. So if you feel like the game is too challenging or not challenging enough, you can change your world tier and in turn the difficulty at any time. Of course, however, the higher world tier difficulties do mean higher level, better quality loot, but it's the customization, personalization, and options that count here. Where in other games, if you're lucky, you get a few difficulty options to choose from, with Outriders, thanks to the world tier system, you can tailor enemy health and damage to find that sweet spot that you find the most satisfying. And I immensely appreciate that. Something else I immensely appreciate is the replayability on offer. Thanks to the select story point system, you can replay any point of the story, any point of the campaign, at any time. All of the side quests are completely replayable. You don't need to delete your save file, make a brand new character, start a brand new game if you want to replay any specific part of the game that you really enjoyed. This should be the standard, this should be the precedent for all video games in terms of replayability. Good on you, Outriders, for nailing replayability. And speaking of features of Outriders that should be standard, precedent, and that were absolutely nailed, we need to talk about Outriders' crafting system. This is the best crafting system I have ever seen in a looter game, period. Allowing you to completely personalize, enhance, and upgrade your weapons to your personal specifications. If there's a gun that you obtained at the beginning of the game and you really like it and you want to keep it, thanks to the crafting system, you could upgrade it and customize it, take it throughout the entire game all the way to endgame. Additionally, thanks to the crafting system, every piece of loot is valuable. Did some weapons or armor drop for you that you have no intention of using? Just dismantle it, and now you have some fresh new crafting materials to customize and upgrade your favorite weapons. Thanks to Outriders' crafting system, all loot has value. Even though you've upgraded to the next tier of rarity in terms of loot, the low-level rarities are always useful to you and exciting to loot because that means, ooh, more crafting materials. Outriders' loot, progression, and customization systems are just perfect. They truly nailed the looter part of the looter shooter, especially when it comes to the highest tier, highest rarity loot. Legendary weapons and legendary armor sets. These are some of the coolest, most badass looking weapons and armor I have ever seen in a video game, with extremely powerful and unique weapon and armor mods that allow you to really tailor and perfect your build, with devastating status effects for your weapons and powerful game-changing enhancements for your class abilities. I fucking love the legendary weapons and armor in Outriders, and I am convicted to collecting all of them, which means I'm going to be spending a lot more time playing this game. However, as much as I love playing Outriders, it's got some big fucking problems outside of the technical ones. Now, it's time for me to talk to you all about the issues with Outriders. First up, there is basically no variety in Outriders gameplay. There is no variety to the gameplay style or structure. There are no stealth sections, vehicle sections, moments where you take control of a unique new character with unique new gameplay. There are no puzzles or platforming. Outriders is strictly moving from one combat arena to another. You watch cutscenes, you manage your loot in your inventory, and then you move from one combat arena to another. That's the whole game. Granted, if you like watching cutscenes, if you like managing loot in an inventory, and if just constant combat arenas, well, I guess Outriders will suit your taste. But even as someone who likes all those things, I can't deny the obvious repetition on display with Outriders. I really can't blame anyone for getting getting tired or bored or fed up with Outriders. Even when compared to other looter shooters, Outriders is severely lacking in the variety department. Destiny, Destiny 2, The Division 2, all of the Borderlands games, they just blow Outriders out of the water in terms of variety. Now this isn't a critical flaw or anything, it doesn't make Outriders unplayable, but it's undeniably noticeable and I can't blame anyone if the lack of variety is a major turnoff. Up next, Outriders being always online and requiring a constant internet connection to play single player. People can fly. What the fuck, man? You advertise this game as not being a live service, and yet you do the exact thing all these live service games do, requiring you to be always online and require an internet connection to even play single player. Why? What the fuck? There is absolutely no reason for the game to be designed this way. You have all these other game design decisions and game features that are indeed pro-consumer, but then you have an always online requirement for single player, which is majorly anti-consumer. There was no reason for the game to be designed this way. It makes absolutely no sense that it was designed this way. The developer stated over and over again that this wasn't a live service, so why did you do this? Just a nonsensical design decision. And speaking of nonsensical design decisions, oh my fucking god, Broodmothers. Broodmothers are one of the toughest alien enemies in the game. They're usually used as mini-bosses, and on lower and mid-tier level difficulties, they're a perfectly fine enemy. Until you fight them on higher level difficulties, and they're needlessly fucking brutal. Broodmothers can effortlessly one-shot you, whether it's via their melee attacks or their ranged AoE attacks. Their ranged AoE attacks covering a massive area, while the area of effect also being hard to see. The visual indication is simply too faint. To top it off, the Broodmother's crit spot appears to be totally random. After hours upon hours and fighting countless Broodmothers, I still can't tell you what the fuck this thing's crit spot is. I don't know where I'm supposed to shoot for maximum damage. Broodmothers are simply unbalanced and far too strong on higher difficulties. They need a nerf. They need a hardcore nerf. Oh, and speaking of things at high level difficulties that need nerfs, oh my god. What may be Outriders' biggest current issue in my opinion? The endgame expeditions on the highest challenge tiers. Enemies simply have way too much health and they deal way too much damage. Doesn't matter your build, doesn't matter your weapons and armor. If you want to complete the highest level endgame activities, you have to exploit and cheese. It's the only way. Enemies and bosses are simply too tanky and too deadly. I got extremely lucky during one play session where I was able to matchmake with some max level players, 2 endgame technomancers that were able to carry me through the endgame content and fight the final boss. But outside that one play session with some very lucky matchmaking, I have not been able to consistently complete the high tier challenge expeditions in solo play or with other groups in matchmaking co-op. I am thoroughly convinced that People Can Fly never played their own endgame. They certainly made it. They made a shit ton of endgame content, but I'm mighty suspicious if they ever played it on the highest challenge tier difficulty. Because I just fail to see how your average gamer or average game developer would find this fun or fair. The highest challenge tier expedition difficulties need a nerf. They need to be rebalanced. They're just unfairly difficult and frustrating. Especially when fighting Broodmothers. Oh my god. Fuck Broodmothers, man. Fuck them. So that's that. That's my review of Outriders. While the game does have undeniable issues, flaws, problems, some of which unacceptable and never should have happened, particularly when it comes to the technical side of things. But despite its faults, I still immensely enjoy playing Outriders. I still love Outriders. It's still in my top 5 games of the year 2021. I'm still gonna dump tons of more hours into the game because I just enjoy playing it that much. The combat is so satisfying. The loot is so cool and rewarding. And I just like being in, exploring, and traversing this new dark sci-fi world. So I love the game and I have a lot of fun playing it, but Outriders is not for everyone. Be sure to do your research and come to your own conclusions if this is a game for you. Anyways, that's been a video. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below. I love reading comments, get nearly enough comments. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Outriders in the comment section down below. Please leave a like if you like the video in any way, shape, or form. Hitting the like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved in the video. If you hit the like button, please share the video on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. And if you want to help out and support me directly, well, there's always my Ko-fi and my Patreon in the description down below. Anyways, once again, that's been a video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later.